Going off to college can mean different things to different people. Maybe it's the first time away from home, maybe you're being challenged with new ideas. But one thing about entering college means that for many, you're finally of voting age.
But increasing voting restrictions on college campuses have made it much more difficult for students to be able to cast those ballots. New reporting in the September through October issue of Washington Monthly reveals that more and more obstacles are popping up for college-age voters, often in battleground states, by the way, not a coincidence, like Iowa, North Carolina, Ohio, and New Hampshire. Joining us now to make sense of this new phenomenon is Paul Glastris, Editor-in-Chief of Washington Monthly and friend of the show, I would say. Great to see you, Paul. Always
Great
glad when you're in the house.
Thanks, Crystal.
Talk to us about the voting restrictions that we're seeing pop up. How are people trying to keep college students from being able to vote?
So, as you say, a lot of swing states, and it's primarily Republican-controlled states, legislatures, secretaries of state are making early voting illegal, making it tougher to for outside groups to help people register. In Texas, they had a famous voting piece of legislation that made it legal. You could register with a hunting license, not with a student ID. So we know where the aim is here.
Sure, that's just a coincidence.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
And so what is it exactly about this that people are scared of, so to speak? I mean, where are we seeing this in the worst particular cases? Which states?
So New Hampshire, Arizona, Texas, a number of states, all of Wisconsin, where the fear of youth voting by Republicans. They know that young people are dramatically pro-democratic now, and educated young people dramatically pro-democratic. And so there's a battle to kind of squash that vote. The curious thing is it's not working. Every time these new measures go into place, student groups and in coordination with their those universities that care about voting find new ways of overcoming it. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of organizing, but we saw a dramatic increase, as we all know, in student voting in 2018. Well, we also saw it in 2016. Everybody was saying, oh, you know, student voting is down, but in places like the University of Texas at Austin or Arizona State, the voting rates actually went up from 2012 to 2016, and it's because they've organized.
But Paul, what are the rates incomparable to like older people? I mean, ultimately, how many college students actually voted in 2018 and 2016?
So it is much lower.
Yeah.
Forever, young people have voted at lower numbers. It's not this generation in particular. But it's a large group, right? This is the millennials and the younger people, and it's the biggest generation now alive. So even modest increases in their voting can make a dramatic difference. So in the Senate race in 2018, the winning Democrat won by fewer votes than it takes to fill up Arizona State Stadium. So college students can make the difference in a lot of these races.
Now, part of what you're looking at in this new issue is your annual college rankings, and one of the things that you paid attention to is which places are doing the best job of enabling students to vote. So what did you find there?
So we don't have measures of student voting rates by college. We'd like to have them. If we had them, we'd include them in our rankings. Instead, we measure by proxy. And the proxy we use is, do they participate in a couple of nonprofit national efforts to register, to have the National Student NSELV, I forget, National Student Learning, blah, blah, blah. They come into a college and help the college find that number by using their data and using voter data. And the All-in-Campus Challenge, which comes in and offers to help create action plans to help the school get the students to the polls. Those two measures lead to what we call our honor roll, which is schools that do the best basically have perfect scores on those two measures.
And now, was there any correlation there that you found with swing state schools or non-swing states?
Not so much there.
What are the schools? What are the
so
top
it's
five?
a great variety of schools. There are some private schools, Brown, big name schools, George Washington here in town, but it's mostly public universities. Even though there are more private than public, the publics dominate. So at a public university, there's a little bit more of a sense of responsibility to help students become
Probably
active
more
citizens.
in-state students too, right? I mean, like people who
Yeah,
actually
probably,
from
but
the
most
state
private
living
schools are
Yeah.
recruiting from nearby.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
but it's all kinds of schools that you've never heard of, like the University of Minnesota at Duluth, right? Not a famous school, but it had a perfect score, and it's places like UT Austin and Arizona State.
Interesting. So, I mean, the youth turnout rate I'm looking at here was 46%. It's 15% less than the overall rate.
Right.
And I think broadly, what is it that you think that the role that these colleges can play in ginning up support? As in, how much of it is on the college, and how much of it is just like the political moment at the time? So, like people are pissed off, so they're going to go off and they're going to vote, or does the college really make much of a difference? Is what I'm really asking.
Well, obviously, we saw in 2018 just a broad increase over 2014, comparing like to like in midterm voting. But as I said before, a place like UT Tech, University of Texas, and at Austin and Arizona State, the voting rates in 2016 went up when they were flat everywhere else. So I think we've determined that efforts by campuses and the students on those campuses, I should say, because the students often take the lead if the university provides the means, that those efforts make a noticeable difference.
Interesting. Another thing that you look at that I always like in your rankings is which colleges are the best value, right? If you're a working class person looking to get a good education, be able to start a good career, and not be in debt for the rest of your days, what are some of the places that score well on that metric?
Well, my son, who's going off to college in a couple of weeks,
congratulations.
Thank you. He's chosen the #1 master's university in the country by the Washington Monthly rankings.
So you got a little personal interest in this year.
Yeah, and I'm very, very grateful to him because it's a great school, Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. And even though it's 2,800 miles away from me, it's a good school for my wallet. It's a great school for him. They do a phenomenal job of providing a solid education with a degree that provides good paying jobs at the end. And that's really what we're looking for in what we call our best bang for the buck rankings. Do they recruit and graduate non-wealthy students, right? Just average students, lower middle class, poor students, not the wealthy. Do they recruit and graduate those students? Do they charge them a reasonable amount? And when they get out, do they get decent jobs? And so our rankings are utterly unlike, say, U.S. News, which has a completely different set of values. They're looking to, is a school exclusive? Is it wealthy? Is it got a brand name? And so we have this year a new ranking called the Affordable Elite, which, usually we don't care about SAT scores, but we decided, let's rank them by SAT scores. Which schools do right by the average student? And the #1 school in the country was not Harvard, it was not Yale, it was not Princeton, it was CUNY Baruch College.
There you go.
Right?
Interesting.
And the #2 was UC Davis. So there's fine, academically distinguished schools that don't charge too much and do right by the
I love
average
that
student.
you lift these institutions up and help give parents and students a real guide to how they can best spend their education dollars. Paul, great to see you. Thank you.
Paul.
Thank
High
you.
school viewers, take note.
Indeed.
Next on Rising, it's been 15 years since Google was first publicly traded, but most of us think the Google culture and workplace is hip and progressive.
Natasha Tiku, senior writer at Wired, tells us what she learned about the so-called happiest company in tech when Rising continues.